Those who thought they were in control, those who held the strings of his life in their hands were suddenly surprised. All the games, secret calculations and backstabbing came to naught one by one. You no longer play a role in anyone's shadow, in anyone's scenario. Those strings have been cut and you have stepped into your own freedom. As the order of the puppeteers crumbles, your new journey begins. Now everyone's plans have collapsed and their fears have grown. Don't just be a spectator, be a part of the story. With your support, we will become a giant family of 5,000 people. Subscribe now, turn on notifications and join us. Because the real power is not always behind the scenes, but in the brave heart that breaks the chains. Now everyone knows that you are not here to be controlled, you are here to shine. Today is the time to be the author of your own life. Imagine for a moment you're like a precious seed buried deep in the earth. All around you, the world is busy with wind and rain, with people coming and going, not always noticing what's happening beneath the soil. On the surface, storms may sweep through, and sometimes it seems as if everything is against you, but what most folks don't see is that, under the ground, there's a steady hand at work, tending, guarding, and nurturing that seed. That seed is destiny, and the hand? That's the quiet protection of something higher, a grace that never sleeps, a guardian that sees what others overlook. Just as the gardener covers the seed with soil to keep it safe from hungry birds and harsh sunlight, so too does a divine wisdom arrange the details of your life to keep you covered, hidden, and secure when you most need it. While the world might plot, plan, or push against you, there is always a greater design unfolding, one that only reveals itself in quiet moments and seasons of waiting. It may not look like much is happening, but the most vital work is taking place out of sight, in those places where hope is being watered and purpose is taking root. There's a reason why some doors never opened and why certain relationships faded into the background. Sometimes, what feels like rejection is really protection. That's not always an easy truth to swallow, especially when you've put your trust, your love, and your energy into things that didn't work out. But what you couldn't see was the bigger picture. The connections that were quietly rerouted, the traps that were gently dismantled before you even knew they existed. Life is full of unseen crossroads, and every now and then, you find yourself rerouted, even when you thought you were headed straight. You might feel the sting of disappointment, the uncertainty of the unknown, or the ache of something lost. But what if, in the background, heaven was working overtime to make sure you didn't get tangled in situations that would have pulled you off course? What if every no you received was actually a yes to a better, brighter path? Some folks will try to steer your story for you. They'll push their plans, manipulate circumstances, and sometimes even try to talk you out of the dreams God put in your heart. But what they don't realize is that you're not walking alone. There's a shield around you, and it's not made of steel or stone, but of intention and favor, layered deep and quiet, impossible to see but undeniable in its effect. People may whisper and plot, but their efforts fizzle out when they hit that invisible wall of protection, like waves breaking on a rock that won't be moved. Behind every miracle is a message. Subscribe and discover them with us. And isn't that how grace works? Not in the grand gestures, but in the subtle redirections, the closed doors, and the gentle nudges. Sometimes you're spared from heartache, not because you're clever or cautious, but because there's a wisdom greater than your own working behind the scenes. When you look back, you'll see the moments you were carried, when things fell apart only so something better could fall together. It's easy to overlook the quiet miracles, the jobs you didn't get, the invitations that never came, the plans that changed last minute. It's tempting to get frustrated or feel forgotten, but if you look closer, you'll notice that every detour was actually a straight line to something precious. There's an art to learning how to trust what you can't see, to rest in the knowledge that you're being led, even when the road is unfamiliar. Sometimes the greatest battles are fought without our awareness. Arguments that never reached our ears, obstacles we never tripped over, situations we never had to confront, all because grace was there first, sweeping the path clean. There are times when you were delayed by 5 minutes, only to realize later you missed something that could have hurt you. That's not just luck, that's a divine hand turning time itself into a shield. Even the people who try to work against you are subject to a higher authority. They may draw up their plans, set their traps, and expect you to walk right in, but over and over, their schemes fall flat. The tables turn, the tide shifts, and you find yourself protected in ways you couldn't have planned. It's almost as if every plot against you is intercepted, every ill intention neutralized, every setback turned into a setup for your good. As seasons change, you begin to realize that the very obstacles meant to stop you were used to build you. The roots that grow in darkness are the ones that anchor you for the harvest ahead. While others see only the surface, the wise understand that it's the hidden work, the unseen shield, that determines what flourishes in the light. People will try to predict your future, some with genuine concern, others out of their own insecurity. But their opinions and attempts to manipulate your journey hold no real power over the outcome. You are not at the mercy of other people's decisions. You are in the care of a force that writes destinies, a love that refuses to let you settle for less than you were created for. Think of it this way: a ship may pass through stormy seas, tossed by winds and waves, but it is the anchor beneath the water, unseen by all, that keeps it from drifting into danger. So it is with you. You're anchored by promises spoken over your life, by prayers you didn't even know were being prayed, by favor that surrounds you like a cloak. Storms may come, but you are not unmoored. Sometimes, the greatest evidence of your protection is not what happens, but what doesn't. The accidents you never had, the betrayals that missed you, the harm that was rerouted, these are the fingerprints of divine intervention. You're being shepherded, guided, and guarded, not because you're lucky, but because you're loved. Over time, you'll find that every attempt to control your outcome, every negative word, every hidden agenda is rendered powerless by the one who holds your future. It may not always be obvious in the moment, but when you step back, the pattern becomes clear. Destiny is preserved, interference is blocked, and the journey continues on ground prepared just for you. There's a calm that comes from knowing you're not in this alone. The world may be noisy and unpredictable, but you are quietly held by an everlasting arm. This knowledge doesn't remove the struggle, but it does give you peace. The kind of peace that lets you sleep at night, the kind that lets you keep moving forward even when the way isn't clear. In the end, you'll see that the invisible stewardship in your life was never about stopping others, but about releasing you into fullness. While others may try to write your story, they cannot change your ending. You're carried by grace, shielded by purpose, and destined for a goodness that can't be blocked, bargained, or taken away. And as that quiet seed pushes upward and breaks through the surface, it becomes clear, all that hidden work was not in vain. The world sees the blossom, but heaven knows the story of the roots. The journey was never just about survival. It was about becoming, about growing into all you were meant to be. So, trust the hand that guards you in the dark and leads you into the light. Know that every unseen favor, every closed door, every twist in the road is leading you somewhere good. You may not always understand the process, but you can rest in the promise. What's meant for you will always find its way, untouched by the schemes of others, guided by a love that never fails. There are times in life when you're like a well in the middle of a quiet field, silent, overlooked by many, but precious to a thirsty traveler. All through the dry seasons, people come to that well, drawing water to quench their thirst, never giving much thought to where the water comes from or what it costs to keep flowing. Folks gather round, filling their buckets, and for a while, nobody notices how much is being drawn, how much is being given. But every well needs its season to refill. There's a moment when the flow that seemed endless grows quieter, not out of stinginess, but because the source must rest and restore itself. When that season comes, those who always counted on easy water begin to feel the difference. They wander back, expecting the same abundance, but the well is deepening itself, pulling in new springs, getting ready to pour out something even purer. The same people who never noticed the well's quiet work start to realize how much they depended on it, and a kind of anxious searching sets in. It's a strange thing, but when the source you always took for granted isn't there, you start to understand its real value. Some try to dig new wells in a hurry, hoping to find another stream, but nothing tastes quite the same. Others circle back, hands empty, hearts a little desperate, looking for that living water they'd come to expect. They may not say it out loud, but deep down, they know they've lost something precious, something you can't replace by running from one place to the next. See, every time God calls a chosen one into a new season, it's like the well gets covered for a while. You're not hiding out of fear, but stepping away to be replenished, restored, and reconnected to the source. It's a holy pause, a Sabbath for the soul. And those who once drew their strength from your spirit, your kindness, your listening ear, find themselves restless, uncertain, even a little lost. They used to come by your presence for warmth, for reassurance, for a light in the darkness. But now the fire has been moved, tended elsewhere, and the chill of absence makes them remember what they had. It's like when the lamp in a dark room gets moved to another house. Suddenly, those who relied on that glow have to fumble in the shadows, searching for the light switch, realizing for the first time how much that single lamp meant. Their hearts long for the warmth they once felt, but the lamp is gone, shining in new places, reaching corners it never reached before. And here's the part most people miss. That restlessness, that longing, is not just about losing comfort. It's a gentle nudge from above, a summons to find their own source, to dig their own wells, to discover that what they sought from you was always meant to point them back to something higher. The discomfort isn't punishment, it's a teacher. It reminds them that true strength isn't borrowed but built, not taken but cultivated. In these seasons, God protects the chosen one like a shepherd pulling the flock away from a field that's been grazed down to the roots. The pasture may have looked full, but only the shepherd knows it needs time to grow again. People wonder why the shepherd led the flock away, but the wise know rest brings renewal, and what looks like lack is often preparation for greater abundance. Those left behind, wandering where the grass once was thick, feel uneasy, missing the provision that seemed so constant, so easy, so sure. It's a time when priorities are revealed. Some folks will try to recreate what they lost, chasing after shadows, hoping to catch even a spark of the old warmth. Others will search for you in old places, not realizing that the well has moved, the lamp has been carried forward, the table has been set in a new valley. What they're missing isn't just your company, it's the reflection of something holy, the glimpse of God's presence that shone through your life for a season. Seasons of change are God's way of inviting everyone to deeper waters. For the chosen one, it's an invitation to go higher, to be refilled, to become more than just a well for others but a river that flows out, touching lands never reached before. For those who remain, it's a gentle call to grow, to remember that the true source never dries up, even when one well closes. The Spirit is always ready to meet them right where they are, if they will only seek. Are you a story lover or a truth seeker? Subscribe and be both. It's natural for people to feel unsettled when their source changes, when what was easy becomes uncertain. Some may grumble, some may blame, some may wander in circles trying to recreate the old blessing. But as any wise farmer knows, the field must rest if it's to bear fruit again. Those who wait, who learn, who begin to look within, will find new strength rising up, new wells springing forth, new fires kindled in unexpected places. In all of this, there's a quiet encouragement. God never leaves anyone empty-handed. Even as He leads you into rest, into new beginnings, into unknown lands, He invites others to do the same. The ones who feel restless aren't being punished, they're being awakened to the possibility of new growth, new grace, new hope. And for the chosen one, let this be a comfort. It's not your absence that troubles them, but the absence of what God was doing through you. Trust that as you obey the call to move forward, the same love that filled your well and kindled your fire will meet those you've left behind. You were never meant to be anyone's only source. You were a signpost, a vessel, a lamp on the way. Now it's time for new seasons, new songs, new strength, for you and for them. So don't be discouraged by the restlessness in others or the longing in your own heart for what once was. The shaking, the searching, the wandering, they are all signs that God is stirring hearts for something deeper. Let go of the fear that anyone will be left in lack, for the Good Shepherd knows how to provide, and the river of His grace runs deeper than any well could ever reach. When the time is right, you'll see new streams breaking out in dry places, and the ones who once circled the old well will find living water springing up where they least expect it. Until then, rest, be restored, and let the work of the Spirit continue, both in you and in those who are learning to find their own way home. Sometimes, curiosity is like a moth circling a porch light at midnight, drawn again and again to that glow, unable to rest until it understands what's on the other side of the glass. People who once stood shoulder to shoulder with you, who felt warmth from your fire, find themselves restless when that light is moved to another house. They press their faces to the window, searching for a glimpse, hoping that by studying the shadows and reflections, they'll see a path back to the warmth they lost. They become collectors of your footprints, picking up scraps of conversation, bits of memory, old photographs, and fragments of old messages as if each were a precious clue leading to a secret treasure. They comb through what's left behind the way a gardener sifts last year's soil, searching for a seed that might spring up again. But what they find, more often than not, is the quiet confirmation that the garden has moved, that what once grew here has now taken root in different soil. It's a curious thing, how the ones who rarely noticed your spirit when you were always near now study your every trace as if looking for meaning in the rings of an old tree. They scroll through old posts, revisit shared moments, hoping to decode the new season you've stepped into. Their efforts are sincere in a way, but there's a longing underneath it all, a hope that by understanding your journey, they might find a way to share in your new light or even call you back to familiar ground. But the distance now is like the morning mist that rises between two hills, soft, unbreakable, ordained. Every time they reach out, their hands close around nothing but air, and the gap only grows clearer. The ones who used to lean on your strength for comfort, who found reassurance in your presence, realize that their maps no longer match the territory you now travel. The coordinates have changed, and the landmarks are gone. All the digital footprints they follow, the photos, the words, the hints and subtleties, are like trying to catch the wind with bare hands. The new direction you've taken isn't found on any old path, but has been charted by grace, by a deeper wisdom that only the Spirit can guide. Their searching, though it feels desperate at times, is really a sign of the longing every heart has for connection, for meaning, for belonging to something greater. Some will attempt to reconstruct the bridge that once joined your lives, brick by digital brick, but the river underneath has changed its course. They are looking for yesterday's road, not realizing that you've stepped onto a path that doesn't repeat, a journey led by a quiet call within. The distance they sense is not punishment, but preparation for you and invitation for them. And isn't it something, how God sometimes closes certain doors so firmly that we can't even hear the latch turn? Those who once had open access to your spirit now find themselves standing in a hallway with no light, unsure where to go next. They linger at the threshold, hoping you'll return, peering into the corners of memory for a sign that things might go back to the way they were. But the truth is, when God lifts a person into a new assignment, He also creates a hedge, one no search party can cross, no matter how persistent. The fragments left behind are not invitations to retrace the old journey, but reminders to seek out new light for themselves. The more they pore over what's past, the more they realize the story has already turned a new page, and the author is writing something fresh. For the chosen ones, this is not a reason for guilt, but for gratitude. Your life is not a public archive to be endlessly reviewed. You are a living testament to the fact that we walk by faith, not by sight, and that the Spirit's guidance will sometimes lead us far from the crowds we once comforted. Let those who search for your footprints be reminded that what they truly seek is not you, but the divine spark they glimpsed in your presence. If they are wise, they'll look upward and inward, asking for the same guiding light that has called you forward. If not, they may wander a little while, but that's between them and their Maker. In all of this, know that the distance isn't coldness, but calling. The absence is not a wall, but a signpost. You have become like a lantern carried into new territory, lighting a path no one else can walk for you. Let those who remember your light not grow discouraged, for the world is wide, and the same sun rises on all who are willing to seek. Your journey is your own, blessed and protected, and the curious ones must now tend to their own lamps, their own faith, their own way home. Sometimes, life is like a garden at dusk. Just when you think the day's work is finished, you spot movement among the rows. Some come with baskets and gloves, pretending to tend what's growing, but their real goal is to see if there's any fruit left to pick that isn't theirs. They walk the perimeter, keeping low, hoping no one sees them checking for hidden gates in your fence. They gather quietly, strategizing like night shift harvesters, whispering about the best angle to approach, convinced that if they just coordinate their efforts, they'll reclaim a harvest that never belonged to them. And isn't it just like the world to send out scouts and set up watchtowers when they feel their hold slipping? Some folks act like generals organizing troops, pulling old friends out of retirement, assembling a roster of informants and helpers, like fishermen casting nets into deep waters, believing they'll catch what already swam out to sea. There's a restless energy in their movements, an urgency that comes when the well runs dry and they're thirsty for the water they used to draw from you. But here's the simple truth: the river has changed its course. What once ran freely through familiar channels now flows somewhere new, directed by a higher hand. They can dredge the old stream bed all they want, but not a drop will return. And as they scramble, building their plans and dusting off old connections, it's not reunion they seek, it's reconnaissance. It's as if they believe that by piecing together bits of old stories and new rumors, they'll recreate what's been transformed by the spirit's wind. Some reach out to people from your past, not with open hearts, but as scouts gathering weather reports. Have you heard from them? Do you know where they are? What are they doing now? They collect scraps of information the way crows pick up shiny things, stockpiling gossip and fragments, convinced these will form a map leading back to your doorstep. Others grow more creative, using new names, borrowed profiles, and digital disguises. They weave webs across social networks, hoping to catch sight of your shadow, track your steps, or intercept a stray word. It's a quiet campaign, but make no mistake, it's a campaign all the same, fueled by a desire to manage what can no longer be contained. But here's the wonder in all this. When you are divinely guided, no net, no trap, no search party can confine your progress. Your path is charted by a wisdom far greater than human cunning. Their surveillance, no matter how clever, will always fall a step behind. Trying to monitor your spirit is like chasing a cloud with a butterfly net. You can run yourself ragged, but you'll never catch what's been set free by the wind. And sometimes, in their urgency, they'll revive old alliances not to share joy, but to trade intelligence, each one reporting back what little they know, building dossiers on the you that was, not realizing the you that is has already moved beyond their reach. They gather like town criers comparing notes, swapping tales in the hope that together, they might summon your presence. But their conversations are echoes in an empty hall, because your steps now follow a different melody. The truth is, you've outgrown the roles you used to play in their stories. Your roots reach deeper, your branches stretched higher, and you answered a call that pulled you out of their garden altogether. They're searching for last season's harvest while your soul is already blooming in a new field. God's protection is the lock on your new gate and the compass that points your feet forward. While others are busy laying traps behind you, the Spirit is opening doors ahead of you that no amount of plotting can close. Their wide nets will come up empty, and the old strategies will only remind them how much has changed since you answered the whisper of destiny. Let them search and strategize. The chosen ones don't have to hide or shrink or apologize for the growth that leaves some people confused or restless. It's not your job to slow your journey to fit the pace of those determined to watch from the sidelines. If they really wanted to find you, they'd have to ask the one who's guiding you now, and that journey requires a humility and openness most strategists aren't ready for. In the end, every elaborate scheme, every midnight meeting, every digital mask, is just another sign that what's happening in you is beyond ordinary understanding. You're not lost, you've simply graduated to a new assignment. Let their nets remain empty, let their maps grow outdated, because the only way forward for them is the same way you found: surrender, faith, and a willingness to walk where only the Spirit leads. So keep stepping, chosen one. You are guarded, you are guided, and no amount of surveillance can capture what's become invisible to anything but grace. Your journey is not a secret to be uncovered, it's a testimony to be lived, one sunrise at a time. Picture an old farmhouse in winter, where for years the warmth from a single wood stove has kept everyone inside comfortable and safe. For as long as the fire burned, nobody noticed the drafts sneaking through the cracks or the cold that pressed in at the windows. But one day, the stove goes out. The flame that once warmed the house moves on, called to another place. Suddenly, the air inside changes. Those who grew used to its gentle heat shiver, now aware of chills they never admitted were there. It's often only in the absence of a steady light that hidden weaknesses show themselves. When a person who brought comfort and stability is no longer present, those who leaned on their strength are left face to face with the truth of their own foundations. The spaces where warmth used to gather now seem larger, emptier, echoing with longing for what once felt so easy to take for granted. Many, when confronted with these feelings, don't turn inward. Rather than lighting a new fire of their own, they run from room to room looking for leftover embers, hoping to capture what's already gone. There's an urgency in their search, a restlessness that grows into frustration as they realize that the heat they depended on can't be summoned by wishing or by blame. It was never theirs to command. It was a gift that moved freely, blessing as it passed through. Some will try to patch the cold with blankets of distraction or denial, piling up old routines and borrowed opinions, hoping to muffle the discomfort. But no matter how many layers they add, nothing substitutes for the honest glow of a living fire. Others, instead of tending to their own hearth, begin pointing fingers, blaming the world, blaming the one who left, blaming fate itself for their discomfort. They don't realize that the path to true warmth is inward, not outward, that only by kindling their own spirit can they ever feel whole again. For a few, however, the silence and chill become a gentle teacher. In those quiet moments, wrapped in a different kind of stillness, they notice the patterns they've lived by. They recognize where they've relied too much on borrowed comfort, where they've let their own spark go unattended. Some begin to gather wood, to try, maybe for the first time, to strike a match for themselves, not to replace what was lost, but to answer the invitation to grow, to learn, to be warmed from within. The absence of a nurturing presence can be the birthplace of true transformation. But for most, that invitation is met with restlessness. Instead of sitting with their discomfort, they scramble to reconstruct what's missing from the outside. Their agitation grows, their efforts to regain control become frantic, and in all the noise they forget that the greatest comfort comes from tending the small, honest fires of their own hearts. What was once a borrowed light is now an opportunity to discover their own. And the lesson, so simple, yet so hard for many to accept, is that nobody can restore wholeness by chasing after what's already moved on. The true path is slow, humble, and deeply personal. It's about facing the cold, owning the cracks, and daring to build something lasting, one ember at a time. Withdrawal from the noise of the world often signals the start of a deeper transformation. This solitude is not punishment, nor is it isolation in the clinical sense. It is a profound resetting, a deliberate turning inward. Old habits and assumptions dissolve, making space for a newer, stronger foundation that is aligned with an unshakable sense of purpose and truth. Transformation weaves paradoxes into daily experience. There is an increase in clarity, intuition, and inner power, yet it is accompanied by exhaustion that resists rest and anxiety that disrupts the familiar. Growth appears as both expansion and contraction, as one moves further from old patterns and closer to a truer self. In times of transition, instinct sends subtle warnings, whispers that urge caution, moments that encourage stepping back rather than stepping in. Plans change, familiar places lose their comfort, and sudden waves of unease are not flaws but signals of a finely tuned internal compass, guiding one away from hidden threats and preserving the sanctity of becoming. A variety of seekers emerge in response to the new reality. Some are emotional siphons, thriving on the attention and care they can draw from others. When access is denied, they innovate, using crisis and manipulation to reopen closed doors. Others are architects of control, whose sense of self relies on managing the actions and decisions of those around them. They view autonomy as rebellion and scheme to reclaim lost territory under the pretense of reconciliation. There are also those whose fascination with change draws them close, yet who mistake proximity for understanding. They are pulled toward the transformation, hoping to absorb it without engaging in their own journey. Still others see opportunity in another's growth, hoping to ride new waves of influence for personal gain, crafting personas and scenarios that mirror the ambitions they hold for themselves. Strategies shift and adapt as the transformation deepens. Plots are disguised as coincidences, and calculated approaches masquerade as spontaneous encounters. Every move is measured, as those who seek access invest time and effort into mapping behaviors, seeking vulnerabilities, and predicting responses. Counteracting these advances, unseen forces weave their own patterns of protection. Misdirection becomes a shield, intuition a compass, and inexplicable turns of events reroute seekers before they can make contact. Technology itself becomes a filter, highlighting paths aligned with purpose and dimming those rooted in ulterior motives. The influence of authentic change is not limited to a single life. Its ripples touch acquaintances, peers, and entire communities, sparking reflection and self-examination in those who bear witness. What was once a quiet shift becomes an undeniable current, rearranging relationships and opening new spaces for honest connection. Think you've heard it all? Subscribe and let the Bible surprise you. Attempts to reclaim what has been released only serve to amplify the distance. As if faced with an immune response, seekers find themselves repelled by an energy they can no longer tap, forced to confront the limits of their old strategies. Growth outpaces pursuit, leaving only the shadow of what once was. Freedom from outside manipulation is not merely avoidance, but transcendence. Those who once wielded control discover that the landscape has changed, that influence no longer has purchase. The source of strength becomes not a defense against attack, but a radiant outpouring that alters the atmosphere itself. This is the legacy of those who choose to rise above the pursuit. Their transformation does not end in escape, but in elevation, providing light for others to follow, and proving that real strength is found in the willingness to outgrow old battles, embracing a calling that leads ever upward.